launch of quarantine-free travel between Australia and New Zealand is hopefully fast approaching. And now the cruise industry is demanding a travel bubble of its own, warning that 25,000 jobs are currently at risk. For more, I'm joined by travel expert James Wilkinson. James, the cruise industry has been out of action for 12 months after, obviously, the Ruby Princess debacle. What COVID-safe guidelines would they do to make this work?
We're talking about the big cruise ships, not the small expedition 20 rooms. We're talking the 3,000-4,000 room ships, which a lot are allocated to Australia next 2 years. So they can get it going. It's how you do it safely, isn't it? With testing prior to departure, testing when you got on board. There are ways to do it safely. It's now time to get it up and running, get it back, because we do know during the pandemic, a lot of the people who were booked on cruises didn't cancel. They took the credit. And in some instances, it was an extra 50% of the deposit ended up being an extra week while you were cruising. So there's a lot of pent-up demand. There's a lot of people's money in these bank accounts at the cruise companies. They want to get the ships up and running.
Now, obviously, we're talking about this travel bubble with New Zealand. There's also a one-way travel bubble with the Cook Islands, between New Zealand and the Cook Islands. Does it suggest that we're going to have more countries in this travel bubble?
I think so, because there is a one-way bubble with the Cook Islands, like with Niue as well from New Zealand. So that is a one-way bubble between Rarotonga and Auckland at the moment. We do know Air New Zealand has been advertising some airfares for the other way as well from about May the 10th. A lot of talk in New Zealand that a bubble might start around the 1st of May, which is very close to when we start on the 18th of April. So it's very close, and I think that if we could get the Cooks tapped on, potentially the Cooks would open up. Similarly, I think Fiji is going to be pretty close too. Fiji has 300 resorts plus sitting there that are closed. And that industry really needs a boost. Aussies love Fiji. We know it's very close. They've got a contact tracing app. They're doing a whole lot of things in the right direction. We're getting really close on it. The government, we can do a lot to help the Fijians. This would be a perfect way to do that.
There's also a growing push to include another country in the travel bubble.
There certainly is. Singapore. This has been talked about for some time. In fact, goes back to about mid-last year we heard about it. A lot of students coming out of Singapore as well into Australia. We heard recently the government proposing to have it almost as a midway quarantine stop out of Europe. That's not going to happen, but Singapore is very active to get Australians moving again. We can go to Singapore. You just have to test negative when you get there. You just can't come back into Australia.
OK, thanks, mate.
Thanks.